This broadcast is not about Israel versus Hamas or Palestine, Jew versus Muslim versus Christian. No. If anybody, anywhere, is peacefully and respectfully protesting the loss of any innocent civilian life and defending it without provocation or persecution of others and without incitement to hatred, then so be it. With that being made very clear, it is fair to conclude that we are witnessing symptoms of a country diseased. The disease is not a foreign entity, other races or religions. The alien cultures we see springing up around us, the ghettos forming for opportunists or extremists. The disease, the malady, has spread from within, and it is of our own doing. And when I speak of our doing, I speak of two principal culprits. The first culprit being the British people, over the course of recent decades, who have been blind or ignorant to what has led up to a moment such as this weekend and potentially next weekend, where one of our most sacred days, Armistice or Remembrance Day, is in danger of being sullied in the name of peace by many in number, some of whom appear to have no respect for the young people who sacrificed their lives so that we could live free from tyranny and enjoy the fruits of post-war joy and freedom that their sacrifices gifted us in all those delicious decades that followed on. I often wonder how these well-intentioned people who see no difficulty with vast numbers entering our European countries at an astonishingly rapid rate, I wonder if they have any understanding of the rarity of this magical and tiny pocket of freedom that our tolerant, progressive societies in parts of the West and the Anglosphere enjoy. It has been an extraordinarily rare wrinkle in time, a singular sort of blip, giving more people more autonomy and a degree of control over their own lives, their property, their finances, their sex life, their language, their ambition, their creativity and their potential than at almost any other time, than in any other part of the world that isn't afforded the same protection by America and all her allies. And when I speak of America and Great Britain, I do so while being keenly aware of the shortcomings of both, and not under any illusion that the history of either provides the perfect template for role modelling. No, they don't. But no great system on this earthly plane so far has achieved perfection or executed their systems without regrettable pain and suffering falling in some quarters. This is planet Earth. It is not a haven, it is not paradise. But these do-gooders that I speak of, these bleeding hearts, who are incidentally hemorrhaging the heart of old Blighty as they do their bidding, they are apparently quite unaware of the alternative scenario, and the alternative is coming at lightning speed. Mark my words. It's coming for their children and our children's children. Just a few short years ago, if one mentioned one's concerns in conversation, one's worries, one's observations to friends or colleagues and acquaintances, one would often be met with a sort of pearl clutching of a kind. You know the look, some pearl clutching. And the intimation would be that ultimate weapon of language, that feudal cry, oh, so you're racist, you're racist, you're prejudiced, you're a bigot, you're a xenophobe. All of that, or even worse, you're unkind. You're so unkind. Now, I'm going to use the word class here in an abstract way, but these wailings that we hear are invariably emanating from portions of the middle classes and some of the upper classes. Increasingly, the working class and the poor have got far more common sense, and have got real problems to worry about. Problems such as focusing on getting the basic needs of our own population met, the health, education and housing and opportunity of our homegrown children, and the welfare of families of all colours and creeds in this land. Problems such as focusing on the welfare of genuine seekers of asylum, those who should be warmly but moderately embraced into the fabric of our society, if their own cultures can live beside us in harmony with our ways and our Christian heritage. It's no secret that the influence of Christianity has faded dramatically over the last century. Most of us with British heritage who remain here are influenced by that rich history of that religion. But aside from those who are more devoted to their Christian faith, most people here nowadays are not actively involved in it beyond Christmas presents or Easter eggs or praying when something goes wrong or when somebody dies. That's usually the way. Our parishes and our parish communities and symbols of virtue have been uprooted from the landscape as the religion fell out of fashion, along with that rather unholy chapel of sin, the British boozer, as an alternative. Fine ale houses and pubs that were once melting pots and a place for the working classes in particular to socialise and mix on every street, small pleasures and marvellous opportunities for the little sins of life, the little sins of mead, merriment and mirth. Once the cherished hubs of dancing and drunks and pub quizzes, they are being abandoned in the wake of smoking bans and regulations and pints of beer costing you £5 and a glass of wine costing you 10. These magnificent dens have lost their character as they transition into luxury flats or gastro pubs and are falling as quickly as the parish church. So, whatever your altar, the church or the pub quiz, or a bit of both, a sneaky bit of both, the chasms left in their wake for the melding of British life seem to be widening at the very same time that the churches and communities of other societies within our own are becoming larger, ever closer knit, and increasingly vocal in their demands. Have you noticed? These voices have begun telling us what type of language we should use, that our society, where one is still, in theory, free to either cherish or mock sacred symbols, any idol or god, divine or otherwise. Historically, we have been able to cherish those or mock those and decide for ourselves how we feel about them and how we wish to express ourselves. That has been our freedom. These days, instructions are creeping in. They have begun to tell us what must be censored, what can or can't be shown at cinemas, what's offensive to them, or what is taught in the schools of Britain. And because we are kind, this word kind, you've got to be kind. Because we are kind, we've let them. We've let them. And they are playing you. They are playing you. Listen up. But these people have been totally played into becoming hell-bent on a mission to encourage every utterly illiberal, ultra-conservative, regime-hungry group of peoples into our midst. An invitation, an open invitation. They're rolling out red carpets and begging them to bring their society here. These people who consider themselves liberals and progressives, they're inviting these types here. Illiberals, ultra-conservatives, under some peculiar mirage that we are all drinking water from the same oasis at midnight. All the different jolly creatures coming out of the foliage and lining up politely to sup together in harmony without a single bite or scratch between them. The myth of multiculturalism. Now, I've been fortunate to grow up able to live in and witness all types of place here in the kingdom. I've known the joys of traditional little English towns and villages and hamlets that are mainly white and British, and those places are delightful. They don't need to undergo diversity training or be changed or infused into those other types of towns that I also know so well, that are a gentle blend of any number of nationalities and colours and creeds, and those places are also delightful. And I've spent the majority of my life in that dazzling and fabulous scenescape, London, where I have lived with, worked with, and slept with those of every colour, creed, and race and religion under the sun. And that place is also delightful. So, as I've always made clear in my book, ostensibly, everyone's welcome to come here and make it their home and be my friend and join my family. But there is and always should have been a caveat. And this is what people are beginning to wake up to, the people that have been played. As well as control over the sheer number and speed of immigrant populations arriving and settling here, the caveat must be that if you enter our society, you embrace it. No grand ambition, please, for change in our freedoms or our language or law should be tolerated. And if that means looking at parts of incoming communities and even existing, establishing communities that are hostile and totally incompatible to our own traditions and laws, then we should do so without fear or guilt or shame or passivity. We must be active and robust. Funding and building places of worship that harbour ideologies and that pray for the total annihilation of other religions, for example, which is happening. I've seen the evidence of it, and would never be accepted in any other parts of society within this nation. You know, these are springing up everywhere. But funding and building these places and falling over ourselves to give rights and privileges to these ideologies while our own churches and values and rights are being eroded simultaneously is unacceptable. And it is in fact also unacceptable to many of the hard-working friends and loved ones that most of us have, who have assimilated over many generations and have integrated with us, married into our families, retained some or none of the traditions of their origin and their traditional religions, be it Christian, Muslim, Hindu, Buddhist, Wiccan, pagan, I don't know, my dear, whatever it is, whatever the tradition, but they cherish and subscribe to the British way of life. These people are the jewels in the crown of empire and beyond that are one with us and stand with us. It's the more radical fringes that have been arriving in the hundreds of thousands for a couple of decades who enjoy the comforts of this society while unabashedly declaring their hatred for it that must be discouraged from entry, barred from taking root and stranglehold. Yes, barred and chucked out. Come here if you love us and you want to live like us, not as facsimiles, we don't expect that, we don't demand that, but as enhancers. If you're not going to enhance what exists, we don't want you here. Stay away from us if you hate us and wish to change and indeed wipe out everything that we hold dear and stand for, but they won't stay away, of course. And who can blame them? Who can blame them when it is their stated mission, some of these types? their stated mission to overthrow our society and usurp it, and we're making it very easy for them to do so. That is why this entire broadcast and my exercised attitude is not even directed as a critique towards these people I talk about. My criticism is for the people of this country who have allowed it to happen and the organs of government, because there has been a complete and utter absence of backbone. And after the last few weeks, it's become very clear that the silenced majority must speak and act. Remember, it was only a few short years ago this government won with a huge majority, a Conservative government. So whether or not they were existing Tories or were persuaded to hop over formerly Labour voters that turned from red to blue, they were voting, at least we can say, for a society that revolves around small c conservative values, to cherish, conserve and preserve that which we already hold dear. A huge majority of all colours made that very clear, and we were let down. But it's become clear that the silenced majority I speak of must speak and act, and that is what I am here to urge. We aren't all equipped with talents for lobbying or traditional activism. I'm certainly not. But thankfully, I look around and see others in the public eye who are capable of such things and are organisers. I see them. We need more, because they're not even coming from the organs of politics and the political world. Most of them are coming from other fora. We need more who are unabashed and unashamed to want to protect our precious society, our beautiful island nation with its unrivaled variety of landscape and character and history. If you're afraid for the future of this country and other countries that are going through similar gigs, it is your duty to find the way in which you can use your voice. We must speak, even if it's merely voicing our objections to our next door neighbour over the fence over a cup of tea. If that's all that can be mustered up, at least that's something. Or voicing your objections to various local and national institutions and the organs of politic. My broadcast has a very modest potential to reach and inspire others, even if it's just 5 people or 10 people, which is why I'm doing this. Inspiring those of this land and beyond. That's why I'm taking my time to add my voice to a rising cacophony that I dearly hope becomes an orchestrated symphony of sound, an overture to a robust defence of this so-called United Kingdom, because I think it's worth it. So, as I've tried to make clear, the first culprit leading us to this reckoning is a portion of we the people of Britain. But the second culprit is our government, our existing 13-year Conservative government, and without doubt the previous Labour government as well. They're all singing from the same hymn sheet, and that hymn is most certainly not "I vow to thee, my country," is it? And as far as that other well-loved ditty, "There'll always be an England, and England shall be free as long as there's a babbling brook beside a chestnut tree." Well, the brook appears to have babbled its last bab, and the chestnut tree has shed its final conker. But if there is any glimpse of green in its dying shoots, and you want to conquer, then as citizens and subjects, you must fight to conquer. Start babbling like a brook, and standing tall and firm as the chestnut tree beside it. We must be water and earth, under the fire of sunlight and stormy air. Is it not the duty of government to protect the people, the institutions, the traditions, the schools and the culture of Britain? Going on their behaviour, one would think that it is their sole endeavour to pander to the wants and whims of every society and every culture other than our own. It is a wanton disgrace and a dereliction of duty. We need to shut up shop, batten down the hatches, and seek out and vote into power those rare characters who are fearless in their desire to protect and preserve, and they must be unapologetically ruthless about it. The influence of incompatible ideologies has seeped into all our institutions and schools and workplaces, and it won't be long before it strikes the heart of our law, of the land, and our constitution. Won't be long. All it takes for these people is a little bit of patience and a little bit of time before there are enough so that they can vote who they want into power. Ideological minorities should not be given the chance to overwhelm or become anything approaching a majority. Why are we giving them the chance to? Because it is becoming increasingly apparent that that is exactly the direction in which we are headed. I want to read some short edited highlights of the words of a British white woman and a Muslim-born brown man, who both express sentiments that many of us share. Camilla Tominey wrote, "It is tempting to ask how on earth did it come to this, but deep down we already know the answer. We know that it has come to this because our politicians and our police have allowed it to happen. They have sat back and watched schools and universities become infected with hard left ideology. Their frankly negligent inaction has created a subculture of intolerants who hate this country and its institutions and are seemingly intent on cancelling anyone they disagree with. That is why it has come to this. That is why we have entered this post-truth parallel universe. For far too long, far too much respect has been afforded to the rights of those who have no respect for the rights of others. A society without limits doesn't just risk incivility, but anarchy." And Hussein Abdul Hussein is a research fellow at the Foundation for Defence of Democracies and speaks of Arab and Muslim immigrants in the West. He writes, "Growing up in the Middle East, my peers looked up to the West with awe. The West was ahead of the Arab world on many levels, including government, urban planning, social welfare, science, literature, technology and military strength. During my years in the old homeland, the Arabs were in consensus over the need to emulate the West, but there was an obstacle. The West was Christian and we were Muslim. The Arabs therefore reasoned that they would copy everything from the West except for social norms. Our westernized life copied consumerism but left out values such as liberty, freedom and equality. The result was a society that was Western on the outside but backward and tribal on the inside. We looked up to immigrants, saw them successful and westernized. Today, under the influence of Islamism, they appear to have become ashamed of their westernization, especially when they visit home. They often try to prove that they have not forgotten their roots, their customs or social traditions, which include political beliefs. This is why Arab and Muslim immigrants in the West now endorse the most radical and conservative of Islamist ideologies. The same Arab and Muslim immigrants who left their homeland to flee tyranny and failing government are now cheering for the same tyrants that they left behind, seeking better lives. Given praise they receive from progressives, standing against democracy becomes a double prize for many Arabs and Muslims in the West, loved in the old homeland and acting like the poster children for authenticity and diversity in their new countries. The left saw Islamism as authentic and unadulterated by white European colonialism, but Western progressives were, in effect, promoting conservative ideologies, an irony that most of them seem to have missed. End of quote. And that has been one of the great thorns in my side, personally, and a thorn in the side of some of you, many of you, I'd wager, who might chime with me. I'm not just casting aspersions towards one segment of society or the other. It is much more nuanced than that, but the frustration has been that those of us who might consider ourselves conservative with a small c, who vote for any party but cherish and wish to reasonably preserve or conserve our customs have been clearly able to see the big picture and see what is coming and what is arriving. And it should have been nipped in the bud a long, long time ago, even at the risk of appearing ungenerous or, dare I say, unkind. Well, as Donna Summer would say, love's unkind, so suck it up. Your children's children might not thank you for that sort of kindness if they end up under a government, a state, a regime, or an ideology with none of the freedoms of expression that you have enjoyed. Or even more chilling than not thanking you for that, perhaps your children's children's children will lie down prostrate several times a day and express their profound gratitude to you in prayer, albeit a very different kind of prayer to that of their Christian ancestors. Well, each to their own, but in my view that would be an effrontery to all those who came before us, who laid down their lives for us and those that we remember. It would be nice to remember them and be able to remember them with dignity and not with our national memorials hijacked and desecrated for their purpose. And yes, indeed, it was actually their sacrifice that gave these swarming crowds the freedom to do such a thing and to gather to express themselves. But if you want your children to flourish within a society that affords them the same freedom of such a gathering or protest, then you might want to reconsider your position and consider the long-term effect of a war that you are in actual fact waging against yourself. England no longer has the strength of a common religion binding all walks of our society as we did a century ago. So it's up to us to discover anew where our common strengths lie and speak or act or pray, if that's what you do, come together in whatever way we can to defend what our governments have not defended. In addition to the verse on babbling brooks and chestnut trees of England, another one of the verses goes, "There'll always be an England where there's a busy street, wherever there's a turning wheel, a million marching feet." That verse seems to have taken on a rather dark and pathetic turn this week. But if a million pairs of feet are going to be marching through London on Remembrance Sunday or any day, do remember that there are also 66 million other pairs of feet that are not joining in that march. And if you are among that number of the other 66 million, start stomping.